Hello, everybody. So, welcome to Live at 5. I'm Don Lemon. So, hello, where is the live? Here it is. We are here. I'm going to put it in here. I just want to tell you about what happened. So, I'm glad that you all are here. I know there's a bit of confusion because I went live from my phone a bit earlier and it was a little herky-jerky. And because there were so many people, it kept going in and out. So, here we are. Thank you for joining us today. I don't have the microphone. I hope you guys can hear me. Can you hear me? Are you guys there? Yes. Okay, great. You can hear me. So I was at NYU just moments ago, where there is a huge protest rally going on. And I ran back here because I was having trouble getting on live. Apparently, all of the cell phone service there, all of the Wi-Fi, everything is going down there. So I had to come back here and get on the computer at home and use my Ethernet to get online because there are so many people. This is a huge rally. And I am extremely worried and concerned about what is happening around the country. This is a protest that was recently scheduled after everything that happened, at Columbia and everything that happened across at UCLA and so on. So I wish I could show you the pictures of the crowds, but I'm not there. And I will try to get some video in for you. But I just want to talk to you guys because it's Friday. And I think that we should chat and we should try to figure out where we are on this, okay? Was it angry or positive? Someone is asking. It was positive. There were people, I have to say, who were there and they were shouting, "Free Palestine, free Palestine." And as they were doing that, there were a group of anti-protesters who walked by, who were, pro-Israel protesters, and they started screaming at the Palestinian or the Palestine supporting protesters, and it got a little bit rowdy. But so far, there is no violence. People are there screaming. I didn't see anything that was anti-Semitic. I didn't see any anti-Semitic signs. I didn't as I was scanning the crowd. It doesn't mean that they're not there. It won't show up a little bit later. But I tell you what, when I'm done with this, because this is such a big rally, when I'm done with this live, I'm going to try to go back on live. So you guys should just pay attention to the channel and look, because I'm going to walk back over to NYU and go live. But, I had a difficult conversation today with Taylor Lawrence and Dr. Jen Goldblatt. And you guys should go look on the channel. It's up on the channel. I want to know what's going on in the country and why there's such a disconnect. I keep saying this every day. There's a disconnect. There's a disconnect. There's a disconnect. As I was talking to those students out there, and I told them, I said, listen, why are you guys here supporting Palestine? And they said, we're here supporting Palestine because we do believe that what Israel is doing is overwrought. They believe that it is an overreaction to what happened. They think that it should be the bombing should be strategic and they should be targeting Hamas directly and not just targeting, what do they say, targeting places where there are innocent civilians and children, and that too many people have died. And just because most people, Taylor Lorenz said the same thing, that many people don't have the rights that we do here in America in Gaza, it doesn't mean that the folks here should not be fighting to help people who are in need. So, and we shouldn't be sending aid. So that is the interesting paradox that we're facing right now with all of these protesters. So I wanted to go live there at 5 o'clock, but when I realized that I couldn't because there's so many people down there, I came back here to tell you about it. And I am going to go there and then a little bit later. So make sure you pay close attention to that. But let me tell you, I'm just going to read some of your comments and I'm going to talk to you. I want to know what you're thinking. I really do want to know what you're thinking. I want to know how you feel about what's going on. The anti-corporatist says they're bombing refugee camps. When you said they're bombing refugee camps, who are you're talking about? Israel bombing refugee camps? Project 2024 says, hey, Don, what is it like covering Access Hollywood back in 2016? How did y'all find out about the tape? Okay, that's a whole different story. I'm going to get to that. But I do want to talk about the college campuses. And I know there's Donald Trump is on trial. It's happening downtown. There were some major witnesses, a major witness, Hope Hicks, who's close to him. But I'm telling you guys, what's happening on these college campuses is going to affect the election. It's going to affect the support for Joe Biden. Joe Biden at this juncture needs every single vote that he can get to win. He needs the support of young people, and he has lost the support of young people. Joe Biden has lost the support of young people. Overall, I'm speaking in generalities here. I'm just being honest with you. Because of his stance on Israel, because he's so pro-Israel, because he doesn't appear, and this is not me saying that, I'm just analyzing, okay? Because he doesn't appear to be paying attention to what the young people around the country are saying, even some young Jewish people and some older. I was out there and someone said, Don, I saw your thing on college campuses and on Israel. I'm an older person. I'm an older Jewish person, and I support this pro-Palestinian rally. So I don't know. It's crazy. Someone said, Abe Kusi says, dead wrong, Don. I wanted to tell me why dead wrong. That's what I want to know. Jimmy Zimzam, let's have a conversation here. Jimmy Zimzam says, hate the two parties. DL cannot. Okay, I'm not sure what that means. Let the chips fall where they may. Trump is no bargain, says Simon Lester. I agree. The anti-corporatist says, yeah, if only Biden could realize that. Palestine is not a recognized country. It's technically a region occupied by Israel that consists of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, says Thomas Paine. Lisa Marie says, are the numbers of non-students outside agitators at the college protest high? No. I didn't ask for student IDs, but pretty much the people who were there looked like students. I had students coming up to me saying, I'm in a journalism program. Hey, can I get pictures or whatever? There were a lot of students there. Now, are there outsiders? I'm sure there are outsiders. I'm sure they want as many people to show up as possible. I'm sure. Joanne Leslie said it's happening here in U's in Canada as well, at universities in Canada as well. It's a conundrum, to be sure. It is a conundrum. I'm telling you guys, this is going to affect the election. There are those who believe that the folks who are out there protesting are essentially campaigning for Donald Trump. I don't know if you believe that. I don't know. But that is what they're saying. Listen, I'm just the conduit here. I'm just the vessel. And I just want to know what's happening. I don't know. But when you go out there, it is almost a completely different story than what you see on many media broadcasts. Okay, I'm just being honest. It's a completely different story. I don't see that's here. I've seen the violence on television, on clips, I should say. I've seen that violence. I'm not seeing any violence at NYU. I'm not seeing anything that is overtly anti-Semitic at NYU. Free Palestine, I don't think that is overtly anti-Semitic. If you believe that it is, please correct me and tell me. From the river to the sea, okay, someone says that is, Taylor Lorenz says that has been made political. I don't know, but Jews believe, there are many Jews who believe that that is anti-Semitic. That means that people are fighting to annihilate, to wipe out Israel. And the folks on the Palestinian side say, no, they just want the people in Palestine to be free from the river to the sea. What is it? What is it? What is going on here? That's what I would like to know. Aang says, I think Biden is stuck between a rock and a hard place. He certainly is. Brittany K01 says, he's lost some young folks. Brittany, he hasn't lost some young folks. He's lost a lot of young people. A lot of young people. And if you look at my friend Charles Blow, if you go to his Instagram page, you will see where he talks about, he is a political analyst and a New York Times op-ed columnist. And what Charles Blow says, if you look at the numbers right now, this is not what you want an incumbent president to be facing, especially when it comes to young people. Because even though it is believed that young people don't vote as much as older people do, there's a big part of them that do vote. And if they're not showing up, it's over. It's over. So what's Joe Biden to do? What are the Democrats to do? It's very interesting to see MAGA protesters and young liberals on different sides of the street with barricades in front of them, both saying, F Joe Biden. Joe Biden has somehow managed to unite both the MAGA Republicans and the liberals. And I shouldn't say Joe Biden has somehow managed. There is a strange connection for the two. Joe Biden is extremely pro-Israel. So I don't know why Jews, American Jews, would not vote for Joe Biden. Unless they're looking at him as this is an overall symptom somehow of the Democratic Party. Therefore, they're not going to place their vote behind a president who is a Democrat because they don't believe that Democrats are on their side right now. Perhaps that is it. I don't know. Jeannie Williams Gashett says Joe Biden needs to help get the attention of the young people. He does. I think that Joe Biden and I think the folks around him should actually be visiting colleges to talk to these young people. They need to have an open line of communication to these young people. Linda Essman says, it is stupid to blame Biden. I remember Kent State. I don't like this. That's the point. That's the entire point, Linda. That's the entire point here. This is reminiscent of Kent State. This is reminiscent of 1968 when it comes to the convention. And when that happened, who was the beneficiary of 1968? Richard Nixon. With his law and order platform after the riots and the protesting of the 68 convention. And then we all know what happened after that, right? He left office before he finished his term because of Watergate. Carol White says, do you really think the military would allow him to change his Israel policy? I don't know if the military is going to allow him to do anything. It's not really the military doesn't allow the president. The president is the commander in chief. I'm not saying he needs to change his Israel policy. I just think that there needs to be communication around it. I think that young people, the older people grew up and they still live with the vestiges of the blatant anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is still around, just like racism is still around, but it was more overt. And that's when, the Black-Jewish alliance was a huge thing. Racism, obviously, more overt. Doesn't mean that racism went away after the civil rights movement. So older Jewish people see things differently. Older Jewish people remember apartheid. They remember the civil rights movement. They remember all of the anti-Jewish sentiment, the anti-Semitism that was happening, not only, in America, but around the world. Younger Jewish people only see, and I'm generalizing here, Israel through the eyes of what Netanyahu has done. A far-right extremist Israeli government, which I believe has forced them to view Israel, what fairly or unfairly, as colonialists, as oppressors. I don't think anyone will disagree with me that Benjamin Netanyahu has handled this terribly. And this is he is partially to blame for this. I don't think anyone will disagree with that. I think most Jewish people and most Israelis, people who live there, would like to get rid of the Netanyahu government or him being prime minister. I think they would like to get rid of him. But they see things completely different. The younger people see things through the eyes of people being oppressed, mainly dark people, brown people, Black people in the world being oppressed. They see things through the eyes of colonialism and colonizers, as they say. And the older people see things differently. So where's the meeting of the minds? Where's even people trying to discuss it? Because if you try to have a conversation about it, and you just mention how the two different groups are feeling, Then people will say, well, oh my gosh, you're anti-Semitic, or oh my gosh, you're anti-Zionist, or oh my gosh, you are anti-Palestinian. So you can't even talk. You can't even have a conversation where in the conversation that people are free to make mistakes without being castigated. You will never, ever, ever come to a consensus about that. And you cannot blame people now. You cannot expect, I should say, people now to solve a problem that has been going on for decades, even centuries, a war that has been happening for decades and even centuries. And I mean just average everyday people, or the people who are out there protesting. They should not be the symbol of all of the terrible things that have happened over the decades and centuries as it relates to the war between the Israelis and the Palestinians, all of the unrest in the Middle East. There are many folks who say, look, why is America involved in this? Why do we have to solve everyone's problems? It's a very simple answer to that. Simple answer, an easy answer to start with, but it's quite frankly more complicated and more nuanced, but is that Israel is one of our biggest allies. Now, others will say it's the corporatist, and they want the oil, so they need Israel to keep the region safe, and so on and so forth. So that, and then you go down a whole rabbit hole with that. Why is a war being fought over religion? Why are they being pushed off their land? I'm not saying that. That's what folks are saying. Why are they being pushed off their land? If I was pushed off my land, I would be ticked off too. There are people who equate it to Native Americans here in the United States. What if the Native Americans came to take your property now? What would you do? Would you turn it over to them and say, okay, yes, this is originally yours, so I'm going to give you my property? That equation is being made as well. But these are the things that we need to talk about without people saying you're anti this or anti that. The same thing that we do when it comes to racism with African Americans, with the civil rights movement. You have to sit down and you have to be able to talk to people, and you have to be able to iron things out without people automatically thinking that you have chosen a side or that you are somehow bigoted in some way because you're trying to get answers. I have many African American friends or people in my life who say, look, I can't open my mouth because then someone is going to say that I'm anti this, and I'm going to be the symbol of a war that has been happening for centuries, and they're like, why am I in this? Okay. And then there are others, my friends who are not Jewish, who will say, I'm staying out of it because you can't win in this conversation. And then my Jewish friends say the same thing. You can't win in this conversation. I know people who were friends before and they're not speaking now. One is Jewish, one is Palestinian, or one is Jewish and one is Arab. And they have completely different thoughts about this. And they can't believe that their friends are calling them anti-Semitic because they think that the people in Gaza should not be indiscriminately bombed by the Israeli government. They have no problem with the Israeli people. They think the Israeli government and Benjamin Netanyahu have gone too far. And of course, the question that comes after that is, what about October 7th, which is a very legitimate question. Horrific things happened on October 7th. A lot of people died on October 7th. A lot of people were murdered and slaughtered on October 7th. Why don't we talk about that? When are the hostages coming home? When are the hostages coming home? Why did October 7th have to happen? And then the other side says, we are in an open air prison. And you know the rest of the story. We feel like we're being occupied. We live in a place where we have no freedom, where we depend on Israel for many of our supplies, water, utilities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whose land is it? It's a whole complicated thing that will not be solved in a matter of days or weeks or months, not before the election, and probably not in years. It won't be solved. But I'm telling you, it will not be solved unless we have the opportunity, or we make the opportunity, to sit down and talk to each other. It's not going to be solved. It's the same thing with racism. Remember that conversation with Elon Musk, and he said, stop talking about it. Okay. All right. Stop talking about anti-Semitism. Stop talking about Islamophobia. Stop talking about being anti-Muslim. If we stop talking about it, does that go away? That is an absurd statement. It's absurd to think that. So, when people talk, you can't shut them down and say, shut up. You're being anti this. And what about, we have to stop whataboutism. What about the other side? Okay, there's another side, but there's not always a time in the conversation where you hear from the other side. There can be times that you hear from one side, and then another time where you hear from the other side. Because sometimes it's too hot. There's too much heat. So honestly, I don't know. But every time I go to a rally, I went up to Columbia the other day, and it started raining, and I did not get the full. This was the night that they were taking everything down, and I did not get the full treatment of everything. But when I talked to students as we were going there, they said, I said, "It was your day interrupted, your classes interrupted?" They said, "No. We just go around the protesters." Now, some people can't. If your classes are there, or maybe you go through this, we just go around them. They're concerned about the police. Larry Larkin says, that's all everybody ever brings up, October 7th, October 7th, October 7th, October 7th. Crimea River. You can't say that. I understand what you say, but what happened on October 7th was awful. That's what I'm talking about, Larry. Let's just be honest with this. You cannot say to anyone, especially a Jewish person, October 7th, Crimea River. Are you kidding me? Especially when there are still hostages, especially when Hamas, this isn't about the Palestinian people, this is about Hamas. Hamas wants to destroy Israel. So that is a non-starter when you're trying to start a conversation. So the question would be, is to be, Larry, and I'm not trying to just call you up, and you put it up here, so I'm going to respond to it, is to be less judgmental and more curious. So if you wanted to start from there, you should say October 7th, October 7th, October 7th. Why does everyone talk about October 7th when there is a larger context? I understand October 7th is a big deal, but let's discuss this. I mean, I'm just giving you a way that you can try to talk about it. But that's a non-starter to come in and say that. Jilly Hertz says, give Palestine their voice back. Okay. Alex Geiger says, well, I don't know, because I lost Alex. Alex, I'm sorry. My thing went up. But I thought you had a very good point. That statement, Donna S. says, insensitive. What is insensitive? What statement is insensitive? Please tell me. Norma Jean Ron says, how did Hamas take over Palestine? Now, that is a good question to start a conversation. Ang says, October 7th was horrible with an exclamation point. That is a good way to start a conversation. Maggie Craig says, Crimea River. I said it. Okay, why do you say that? I want to know. Yazzie Met says, exactly, Don, it didn't start on October 7th. Larry Larkin says, don't tell me what to do. Larry, I respect it. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm just saying, if you want to start a conversation, you can feel however you want to feel. That's not me. I'm not trying to be like, the thought police. But if you put a comment here, I'm going to respond to it. And I think you should appreciate that. I'm just telling you that you have to be open-minded and you have to be curious rather than judgmental. Don, you're the man. Thank you. Thank you, John Kimichowski. I'm just trying to figure out a way to create a conversation here, because there is a huge, huge difference in the way people feel. A lot of it's by age. Aaron Botcher says, I mean, Israel has done basically 20 times October 7th since then. Okay, Aaron, they will tell you they have done that because they're still trying to root out Hamas. Now, that said, I think everyone will agree that the strikes could be and should be more targeted. I don't think anyone can disagree with that. Thomas Payne says, was at Pitt wearing my keffiyeh from 20 years ago. I was concerned about anti-Semitism because I hate that the movement has been associated with that. Spoke to some pro-Israeli Jewish students about their concerns. And you said it was very positive is what you're saying. Okay, thank you for saying that. I appreciate it. It was very positive. I don't know exactly how to have this conversation. But again, as I said, it is very frustrating. It is very frustrating to think about. Yazimet said, exactly, it did not start on October 7th. Sir Ruin House says, are you interested in debating anyone on the right like Ben Shapiro or Tim Pool? Also, have you seen the movie Civil War? Yes, to the movie. Am I interested in debating? I don't know if I'm interested in debating right now. What is a debate going to do? I would be interested in a conversation. I don't think it has to be a debate. Because when you say debate, right, that means that debate means that you're pitting someone against another person, or one group against another. Would I be interested in having a conversation, a productive conversation? Absolutely. But I'm not going to debate anyone about Israel. And let me just say this. I'm not Jewish. I have not delved into the Jewish-Palestinian situation as much as Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro had very strong feelings about Israel, very strong feelings about anti-Semitism, very strong feelings about what happened in Gaza and Israel, and what's happening on college campuses. I'm sure they're stronger than mine because he is a Jewish person. Now, I don't agree with much of what he says, but I think he knows far more about the region and the situation than I do. So I would not want to debate with him because, quite frankly, I don't think I would win in debate. It's not my place. I'm a journalist. I'm not an expert in Israel and geopolitical issues. I am an aware citizen. I am informed about the situation, but I think most Americans are perplexed about what they are seeing happening on college campuses and the response to October 7th and Israel's response to it. I said from the very beginning, when it happened, days after it happened, that I said that Israel has to be careful because they don't want to lose public sentiment. The president of the United States said as much to Benjamin Netanyahu and warned him and asked him not to have a knee-jerk reaction. I said that people had to be careful, Israel had to be careful about that because they had the moral high ground, and that it would become a PR war after the October shock started to wear off. And that's exactly what happened. So no, I would not want to debate anyone, but I will sit down with anyone who wants to have a productive conversation to try to solve things, to try to get people to come to a consensus or just agree to disagree without actual bombs or metaphorical bombs being thrown. That's what I would like to see. Boo Boo Romero says, ugh, I'm so late. I'm absent. No, you're not late. You're joining at the right time. If you guys was just to hear, I live a couple of blocks and I could hear the helicopters. And I could hear the chanting. So I think this is going to be a big rally. And earlier I heard they were removing people from NYU. Kyoko says, I just can't worry about other countries when we have a government not functioning properly. The House wastes taxpayers' money over social media talking points. Now listen, Kyoko, I don't disagree with you. Our government is not perfect and it's not functioning properly in many ways, but we cannot be so myopic where we don't look at what is happening around the world. Because it has a lot to do with our safety. Israel's safety, quite frankly, has a lot to do with America's safety in the world. There's a reason that they're one of our biggest allies. It's because they help to protect the region and they're a democracy in the region. And some would say an oasis in a desert for democracy in that region. So there's a reason for that. The Cheshire Cat says, I hope you get that close to Jesus. He's a good man. I'm responding to Grammy B, I guess. I don't know what that is. Tish Jones says, open-minded, productive, solution-driven conversation is needed. Yes, and we have to stop. We have to get out. I'm writing a book, and in the book, I talk about internet brain. Do you guys know what internet brain is? The internet, and especially social media, have trained us, internet and social media have, that's a plural, have changed us, I believe that it has changed the way that we think. It has given many people what I call internet brain, where people believe that everything is a debate, everything is a fight, everyone is out to get them. Everyone has to be, either there's a winner or a loser. I'm going to cap on you. I'm going to do this. I'm going to own the libs. All of that. I call it internet brain. Has social media changed the way we think is the poll? That's the poll. Go in there and please vote. And tell me what you think about internet brain. And we need to stop it. If you go on certain social media sites, it's really extremely, everyone is narrowcasting everything. Narrowcasting the media, narrowcasting you can narrowcast just like the sports that you like. The books, obviously, you want to read, the newsletters you want to read, the newspapers you want to read, what's on social media. Everyone is narrowcasting everything. Everyone is a part of an algorithm. It used to be that if you wanted to get informed, you had to read the newspapers, right? Everyone read the newspapers. Everyone watched the evening news. People were well read. And now I think people we have so much information, but everyone is so narrow in their information. So when they are completely opposed in most times to hearing another perspective. And let me tell you, guys, sometimes you grow up in households, in certain situations, and you are sort of indoctrinated into what that means. I grew up a Baptist, right? And then I went to Catholic school. And they were completely different. The Baptists would make fun. You go to Catholic school, and you guys, when you go to Mass at Catholic school, you keep getting up and you keep kneeling, and you get up and you kneel, and then you're praying to a false god. Why are you praying to Mary? Why are you praying to Joseph? Why are you doing all these things? That's what they say about the Catholics, right? They say we pray to one God. We don't have, and they think that Catholics they pray to idols, false gods. I'm just saying, that's what I would hear growing up. And then the Catholics would say, we are the true religion, we are the religion of God, like the Jew. And then the Jews would say, Jesus was a Jew, we are the chosen people. So you grow up hearing things in your household and in the environment that you're in. And I understand that. Usually our parents and our teachers try to teach us what's good. They have they have the best intentions at heart, but it doesn't mean that it's always right. And when you become an adult and when you think with a critical mind, when you go off to college and they teach you how to think critically, some of those beliefs some of those things you go, well, my dad wasn't actually right on that. My dad was a bigot. Or my grandma was a holy roller, and that she wasn't right about a lot of things. So just because you grew up a certain way and people trained you and taught you a certain thing, it doesn't mean that it's actually true. And it doesn't mean that you can't question it. That is what going off to college is for. To teach you to help you to think critically. And quite frankly, if you go off to college, when I was in college, some of my teachers were liberal. I went to LSU, very red, Louisiana, very red, very conservative. When the civics that was taught at LSU, very conservative. When I learned civics in high school, I learned it through a conservative lens. And that's good, because I understand how conservatives think in many ways because of that. And then some of my teachers in college and in high school were extremely liberal. I don't see anything wrong with that. So stop saying like the colleges are indoctrinating people. Colleges should have people, teachers and professors from all different political backgrounds and all different religious backgrounds. America's about what? Freedom of religion. That's why we left England. So it's okay for you to question things. It's okay for you to disagree with people. It's actually okay, I believe, for college kids to get things wrong, because that's how you learn, when you screw up. Sarah Habib says, I hope some people will take the time to truly understand the Middle East conflicts rather than making snap judgments based on little information. The anti-corporatist says that's more of a debate bro thing. Right. I don't want to be a debate bro. I don't want to be an internet bro. I don't want to be a YouTube bro. I don't want to be a business bro. Because a lot of the response, it's so amazing. I'm glad you said that, anti-corporatist. A lot of the response to the Elon Musk interview that I did came from a business bro mind, from an internet mind, where everything is a debate. Everything is about money. Not about, what's right and what's wrong. Not about standards and rules, but just about, oh my gosh, could have made so much money there. It's like, wait, what? I would have asked some softball questions. Well, the questions were softball, but I would have been, giving him an easy interview. It's like, wait a minute. What about what you're supposed to do as a journalist? What about speaking up for other people, asking questions on the behalf of other people? It was such a business bro response. Everything is like, well, what about the business opportunity? What about this? And a racist response. Now, here's the thing that you guys have to understand. As a journalist, just because people ask questions doesn't mean that they actually believe those things. In order to get an answer from people, you have to ask questions that you may not agree with. So sometimes the questions coming out of my mouth have nothing to do with my personal beliefs. I have said that I have issues with DEI, and you'll hear about it in the book, but I also support this, what it means overall, what his intent is. The intent of DEI. It's a good intention, but you have to reassess everything. So because I asked Elon Musk questions about DEI, and I challenged what he said about it, that he got wrong, doesn't mean that I believe in every single thing about DEI. I'm a journalist asking questions. Just because I ask questions to Palestinian supporters that may surprise them, or they may think, why are you asking me this? That means you're anti-Palestinian, and that means no. You have to ask questions that way. So that's what I mean by thinking critically. That's the only way you're going to get to an answer. Red Rock View 201 says, YouTube bro. So true, Don. Roxanne is better than that. Yeah, I'm not going to be a YouTube bro. I hope college students, says MS2B Loved, I hope college students learn to have the conversations about the differences instead of fighting each other. Yes, I agree. And I understand that is sort of, Pollyannish, maybe a little bit naive, but I don't think so. At my core, I don't believe that. I think we have to get away from internet brain and from social media brain, where there are extremes on every side. Don, you have very good views on all issues, says Nicholas Rios. Thank you for that. I agree. And I will tell you, my family, I'm not saying anything, and I'm not saying, I'm not pontificating or just pandering, I should say. I'm not pandering, I am pontificating a little bit. I'm not pandering because I have always felt this way. I'll tell you guys, when I was in college, I was a young Republican. And then I became a Democrat. And then I realized, well, both parties have issues. So I have some conservative leanings and I have some liberal leanings. I'm an independent. I want to think on my own critically. I want to vote for people based on what they stand for. And if they stand on what's right for my family, for me, and the majority of other people, so you just can't be selfish about it. You have to think about other people, as we did during the pandemic. What is good for the most amount of people, for the majority of people, you have to think about that. And you also have to think about whether you're on the right or the wrong side of history. Now, I got to tell you, I'm not saying that I agree or disagree with any of the protesters, okay? But the history from college campuses have been, with their protest, a good barometer for what history will bear out. People were against the Vietnam War. People fought for civil rights. People have been fighting against nuclear weapons. Just go down the list. Not all the time, but for the majority of the time, that those young college students have been on the right side of history. And they weren't as dumb as you think they are. They move the old people and get the old people to change their minds, and young people keep us young. Now, again, I'm not saying that they're right on this issue, but I think that to just say that college kids are dumb and they don't know the history and they don't know the context or whatever, I don't think that that's fair. I really don't. It may be true in some instances, but I just don't think it's fair. Norma Jean Ron says, good journalists put their feelings aside. Red Rock View 201 says, DEI is critical and necessary. I don't disagree with that. Cy Pop says, Elon needs to find Jesus. Elon needs Jesus. I love it when people say that. I love it when people say that. Has social media changed what we think? Almost 400 of you have voted, and you said, no, I don't think so, 8%. 91% say absolutely. Absolutely. Sarah Tim says they were wrong on the Iraq issue. I don't know if the college students were fought against the Iraq war. Remember, there were no weapons of mass destruction. When our government was telling us, many people were saying, well, why are we going into Iraq? That's not who attacked us on 9/11. Do you guys just need an enemy to attack to help you politically? Or I don't know. And then there turned out to be no weapons of mass destruction. So, and college students were on campuses protesting against the war in Iraq. Do you think the protest will stop? Do you think the protest will stop when students leave campus in a few weeks? That's the new poll. That's what I want to know. Okay. Talia Hall says the college students have the right to protest in a peaceful manner. They are not dumb. Norma Jean Ron says internet brain is causing compromise to be a lost art. Carol White says, did some of my best thinking in college. Sarah Chim says, but Iraq is better off today. Let's all admit it. Okay, but that doesn't mean that there were weapons of mass destruction. Madame Murrow's House of Cards says, sometimes history has obscured truth and needs to be overlooked with a fresh attitude. The Cheshire Cat says, you were a Republican for real? Yeah, listen, I was in college. I was young. All right. Yeah, for a minute. It was a minute. I was also a Democrat for a minute. But you have to remember, I grew up, I don't know if you guys can hear that. I don't know if you guys can hear the helicopter and the folks. I hear helicopters and crowds, people chanting and screaming. And I'm going to go, after I do this, I am going to go over there and I'm going to try to go live from my phone so that you can see it. John Chimitowski says, Don, it would be great to see you 2 hours every day. Well, we'll see. We'll see how long I go today. I get that. I understand that. But as long as there's interest, I'll keep doing it. And I love talking to people because I'm trying to foster conversation. I'm trying to foster conversation. Tina Bradford says, in some aspects, DEI looks good on paper, kind of like bowling. What did you say? I just lost your thing. Ah, crap. Sorry. It looks good on paper, you said. It's kind of like bowling. I get your point. To be fair, the Republicans of 30 years ago were the Democrats of today. The Overton window has shifted that much to the right. S shaking my head, SMH. I agree, anti-corporatist. Anti-corporatist is on fire. I agree. And I write about that in the book. And I tell them, you guys are going to hear about the book soon, but I do write about that and what Republicans once stood for before, the moral majority stepped in. This was before the moral majority, okay? And you have to remember, I grew up in really red South. There were a lot of people who were conservative, even African Americans, Black folks in the South. Black people can be really conservative with their thinking, with how they feel about church and God, and on social issues. They can be really, really conservative. So the poll that I had before, I don't see it. I don't know what happened to the poll because you had one up. Will you watch Don if he goes live this evening? 97% of you say, of course. 6% say, I can't tonight. 94 say, of course. Will you watch me if I go live tonight? If I go live, I will step out there with the camera and I will go live. But I'm not going to go live in the way that I used to go live on CNN. I'm not going to go live the way the traditional media is going live. I'm going to talk to all the people there. I'm just going to hold the phone up and I'm going to just ask them why they're there. Do they think it's anti-Semitic? Do they think it's anti-Palestinian? What does divestment mean? Do they understand the issues at hand? Do they think that they're naive because they're in college? Do their parents feel a different way than they do about what's happening? Yes, you could hear it. You guys could hear it when I opened the door. Eric B says Don was a MAGA. Eric, get the hell out of here. You know I wasn't no damn MAGA. I was not a MAGA. Sandra Kelly says, you finally get it. Aaron Botcha, switch over to your phone, Don, and let's do this. I will, but it's going to be a different link. So I'm going to go. It's going to go for a while. It's going to go for a while. But I want to know if you guys, I'm not going to waste my time if you don't want to watch it. GOP was very different then, says DL. Please protect the peaceful protesters. Amen, says Kristen Tomlinson. Dogs need their dinner first, Dan 90. Yes, that's true. Some of the Midas Touch people do that. They go live. Yeah, we're going to go live. Do they know what 45 is going to do for them in this manner? Says Brittany K101. That's a question. That's a good question. Jennifer Lynn says protest, but know the facts, know the history. Be careful. There are going to be agitators who are looking for trouble, says RR. I know that. I've been in war zones. I'm cool. Vicky Z says, please be careful out there, Don. I will. I will. So I will set up a link, and the poll says, will you watch Don if he goes live this evening? 91% of you say yes, 8% say no. What time? I'm going to feed the dogs. I'm going to walk over, and you'll just have to look, and you'll just have to check, and maybe we'll send out a notice. I'm so sorry to hear about Ole Miss, says Hamilton. So if you guys don't know what happened at Ole Miss, a group of pro-Palestine protesters. Well, and people say we have to stop framing it in pro-Palestine and pro-Israel or anti-Israel and anti-Palestine, and start framing it as anti-war, because many of these people who are out there are anti-war. They're not anti anything else. So there were anti-war protesters who staged a protest at Ole Miss. But they did it really close to Fraternity Row. And so all of the fraternity folks came out, and they started their own counter protest, and they started singing the national anthem, and then they started yelling at this woman. It was a black woman who was there, and the optics were terrible. And then there was one guy who was doing the ooh, 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 like a monkey or an ape to the young black woman, which is beyond the pale. It is akin to, if you're gonna, that is how Jewish people feel when you say or do anti-Semitic things. And maybe it's how they feel when you say intifada. Okay? There you go. There you go. The police are trying to get there. The helicopters, you can hear them buzzing. And you can hear the protesters. Yeah, I'm that close. You can't see from here. Someone says, go out and see. Carol White says that's close. Boo Boo Romero says, go out and see. I'm going to go out and see. Okay? I'm going to go out and see. Go see what is happening. And I'm going to take you guys there. They are just protesting for Palestine, someone says. Okay, so I'm going to end it here. I'm going to feed the dogs. I'm sure you guys can hear them in the background. Okay? And then I am going to go out. So if I'm going to do this, you better tune in. Or at 5 o'clock tomorrow, we're gonna have a fight. We're gonna fight if I go out there and you guys don't tune in. Okay? Merle Ortega says people in colleges fought not only some civil rights put off, they fought for disability rights. It's really cool if they would do a show on the history of it to help people understand what's happening. Yuki Finzer says, Don, I think this is a decent conversation starter. October 7th was horrible, but does it justify a forced famine of over 35,000 dead? And is the Israeli response just creating more recruitment of sympathy for terrorists? That is a very, very good question. Very good question. Okay, guys. Thank you. I don't know how you feel about what I said. Some of y'all may be mad. Some of you may like it. I'm not anti-Palestinian. I'm not an anti-Semite. I'm just someone who's trying to foster some conversation and understanding. Okay? All right, Lemonheads. All right, Lemonheads. I'll see you later, Lemon Nation. I'll be live. I probably won't be able to see your comments, by the way. I'll be able to see them after the live, and I can respond to them after I go live from down there, but just so I don't think I can see your comments. And the internet, I'm telling you, it may be choppy because so many people are on their phones. Okay? All right. I'll see you soon.